Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host for today. We are talking UFC Atlanta, headlined by Joaquin Buckley and Kamaru Usman. We're going to be breaking down 4 plays here on the show today. And listen, we are coming off a profitable evening last weekend at UFC 316, which I was at. Awesome event overall, and had great seats, watched some great fights, and it's always better when you're watching live at the arena and you're cashing tickets. We did cash on our 5% max bet play, walked away with some profit, and we will take that, put that into the bankroll, and move on to this weekend. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Already have 3 plays up for clients. 2 are at plus money. We'll be adding to that as we get closer to fight night. Don't forget to like the video as well. I always appreciate liking the video, commenting, let me know what you guys think. And with that being said, let's dive into the main event of the evening between Joaquin Buckley and Kamaru Usman. Now, you've got Buckley here. He's minus 265. On the comeback here, you've got Usman, who's plus 200. Now, you look at Usman here, you know what you're getting with this guy, right? You know what I mean? He's a wrestler. He's a former champion. He's going to look for those takedowns, going to look to try to win positionally, push you up against the fence, maybe stomp on your feet if he can. He averages 3 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's just going to look to rinse and repeat with that. Look to win positionally, look to get that control time, look to find the success in that way. Now, he is coming off 3 straight losses. Now, the thing here, I think the biggest thing to take away here is the fact that, you got Usman. He's now 38 years old. Now, we kind of, gone are the days of, the winning streak and, in his prime and all of those things here. And, you look at, the Leon Edwards, the 2 fights he had recently against him. And I do feel like that really aged him. You started to see the decline, I think, mostly from him. Now, even in the, that first fight that they were having recently, that was a fight where I didn't even think it was the greatest performance. He was out there. He was kind of winning positionally. It was kind of a boring-ish, nothing really going on type of fight. And then Leon Edwards lands the head kick heard around the world, flatlines him in the 5th, and he ends up becoming champion. Now, I do think that was, a massive shot to be taking. But also when he came back in the rematch, I thought he really did not fight very well. He just looked a lot slower, less explosive, wasn't able to really push that wrestling pace, wasn't able to get the wrestling going as much as he used to. And I just thought the slower, less explosive version of him is a version that can be beaten. That definitely can be beaten here. And even prior to the 2 fights against Leon Edwards, he had that fight against Covington. I even thought there, even though he won the fight, I don't think it was the greatest showing for him overall, and you're just starting to see him start to age out at this particular point here. Now, the other part is the fact that Usman, over his entire career, he has openly stated that he's had knee issues, that just had knee problems. There's been issues, throughout his career over the last couple of years. Now he's at 38 years old. I don't expect those things to all of a sudden start to get better. They're definitely going to get worse here, and I think that's going to, again, hurt the wrestling, hurt the explosiveness, hurt the movement. And that's going to really hurt him overall, I think, in this fight. While Buckley here now is entering his prime, you know what I mean? And been in an absolute hot streak, 6 straight wins, has looked great. And the one thing I think has really helped him is the fact that he's come down from 185 pounds to 170 pounds. And that really has helped him. He's got a big frame. And when he was competing with guys at 185 that are cramming down to 185, he just didn't have that, the size. He was losing out on a lot of that stuff. Then he decided to say, hey, let me get down to 170. And since he's done that, he has looked just career best, really overall, when you're looking at just how he has now been fighting and the big frame. He is now kind of being a little bit more of a size bully, but also the fact he kept the power. He kept the explosiveness. It didn't slow him down in any way. And I think this is really the correct division for him. And some of the impressive wins that he had, I think one of them recently was against Wonderboy Thompson, where Wonderboy is a guy who is high-level kickboxer, incredible distance management, hard to take down, and just a tough stylistic matchup. And he went out there, although Wonderboy was doing what he was doing, skirting on the outside, chipping away. Buckley goes out there and knocks him out, which is only the second time Wonderboy has been knocked out in his career. That's absolutely impressive. But also the fact that against Nursultan Rizaboyev, where, say what you will about Rizaboyev, I think he actually, he's all right, but his frame is really difficult to deal with. He is very long. He is very tall for the division, and he does pack some power. And what I liked about it wasn't just the fact that he beat Rizabor, but he fought him in a very smart way. He didn't just say, hey, let me get a knockout. Let me just wing hooks forward, because that's kind of what he used to do. He would just wing hooks forward and hope that something would land. Here he's mixing it in, and there in that spot, he was 4 for 4 in takedowns, got control time, and was able to get the victory and fight smart and show a good fight IQ. I did like that. And I think that really at this point, Buckley's better everywhere, I think, than Usman. I really do. I don't really think that, the 28-year-old version of Usman can compete with Buckley at this point. I do like his defensive wrestling. He is strong. I think he's going to have some of the physicality advantages in those spots. We've seen that Buckley is a guy that, can scramble, get back to his feet, is explosive enough to kind of work back to his feet. I also think he can get some of the wrestling going. I think he can surprise Usman and look for some takedowns and just mix it in and keep Usman off balance. There's no way that he's just going to look to strike. I think he will mix some of these things in. And he's got, if this plays out on the feet, he's got the faster hand speed, the better technical striking, the harder hitter between these two. Plus, he's going to be 7 years younger. I think all of these things really play out well for Buckley here. Buckley, out of his last 6 victories, 4 are by finish. I think Buckley gets the knockout here. I think getting off the minus 265 number, you can get Buckley by knockout at plus 140. I think it's a great spot and a very likely outcome. So I'm taking Buckley by knockout plus 140. Next one here we're going to talk about is Jose Ochoa. He is minus 196 on the comeback here. We've got Cody Durden. He is plus 150. Now, this line opened up minus 125 for Ochoa, and we have seen that get steamed all the way up to a 2-1 favorite here for Ochoa. Now, I thought this was pretty interesting line movement here, where you're looking at a situation where, Ochoa comes into the UFC, fights Loner Kavanaugh, who is a tough fighter. There's no doubt. Loner looks like he's got the goods, looks like he's going to be a nice rising prospect in the division. But he goes in that fight, loses, and now comes into this fight against a grizzled vet like Cody Durden, and now he's a sizable favorite. And I think that's kind of interesting here and where the money is going here. But the other part about it is the fact that Ochoa's fought really nobody, once you're talking about, yes, Kavanaugh, but prior to the UFC, it has been really bottom of the barrel guys, very low level guys that are not going to be in the UFC or even be professionally fighting probably in like a year or two. So you look at strength of schedule here, you got Cody Durden, who has fought guys like Charles Johnson, Muhammad Makayev, Jake Hadley, Tagir Ulanbekov, Joshua Van, Bruno Silva. Even the Bruno Silva loss was a spot that he was winning up until he wasn't. He got nuked in that fight there. But you look at some of these guys that Ochoa is fighting, which, again, he's young. I understand that part of it. He's not going to fight the highest level guys. But again, the step up in competition and at this price tag is what we're really focusing on. And you got Ochoa that, if you take the last four guys that he fought and their records, he fought a guy 4-5 record, a 3-4 record, 7-1, and 2-7. I mean, you really can't get much worse than that. The one 7-1 guy was at least a decent fighter. But in general, this is a spot here where he has fought some guys that are strikers. He has fought guys, like even Kavanaugh, a striker, fast hands, very quick. Now, the issue here for me is that Ochoa is about to face probably the toughest wrestler he's had to face by far in Cody Durden. Cody Durden is going to pressure wrestle. He's going to push forward. He's going to look for those takedowns. He's going to be, in his space, chain wrestle. And I think that's going to be a lot for someone like Ochoa. And Ochoa, does he have the ability to wrestle? I don't really think so, but we also haven't seen any real indication that he can. So I think that there is a path here for Cody, especially at this plus number. And I think that Ochoa worrying about, the threat of takedowns, it's going to put him out of a lot of rhythm here. It's going to allow, I think, Durden to kind of dictate the pace a little bit, win positionally, bank rounds. And I think this is a dog or pass spot here. I think, again, competition level and where Durden is at this point here. Yes, Durden may not be the highest level fighter, but he is tough. He's going to come forward and he's going to really give you hell early in that fight. And we're going to find out if Ochoa can keep that, kind of keep it going where he's doing right now. But I really do think that Cody Durden in this spot at plus 150 is the side. So I'm taking Cody Durden plus 150 to get the job done. Next one here we're going to talk about is Ange Loosa versus Phil Rowe. We've got Loosa. He is minus 130 on the comeback. We've got Rowe plus 120. Now, both of these guys have definitely had some mixed Mixed results in the UFC overall. You've got Loosa, who's 2-3-1 in the UFC. You've got Rowe, who's 4-3 in the UFC. And there's definitely no doubt that Rowe has probably faced, the lower level competition since being in the UFC. And he's got some knockouts and people thought he was, maybe this guy's got some power. And he just hasn't really materialized as much here. And, guys he's beating is like Jason Witt, Orion Cosey, who are just not UFC level at all. Nico Price, everybody kind of seems to knock this guy out and beat him. But Loosa on the other side here, he's fought some tough guys. He beat Rice McKee, he beat AJ Fletcher, but, he fought guys like Jack Della Maddalena, current champion there. You got Brian Battle, who I think is, continuing to surge and getting better and better. And I think it's an absolute problem in the division. And even Gabriel Bonfim. I mean, these guys are pretty strong fighters for those three out of the 6 fights he's had coming into the UFC. These are a tall ask for him here. Now, Rowe has the physical advantages when you're talking about reach, height, length, all of those things, but he is just not good at using it. And I just think we've seen that repetitively, throughout his career. He doesn't use it very well. He's got some decent striking, some good boxing overall, but here he will have a 6-inch reach advantage, a 5-inch height advantage. He's a long rangey fighter, but again, doesn't use it very well. And he allows smaller opponents, because pretty much most of the opponents he faces are smaller than him. And they're able to find success, get in tight, where they're looking for the clinch, land some shots, mix it up on him. And I think that's really bad where Rowe is just not able to keep these guys at the end of his punches. And I think that's where you can see some opportunities here for Loosa. And I think the vulnerability here for Rowe is that Loosa can look for these takedowns. He can look to get them down. And you've definitely seen that Rowe definitely struggles a little bit with that 56% takedown defense rate. And he lacks the physicality and the strength. And that is, again, where Loosa will have that advantage. I think he can muscle down some of these takedowns. We've seen that Loosa has really kind of targeted some of these things and mixing it in a little bit better by getting that wrestling going. He has 12 takedowns over the last 4 fights. And I think he's going to find success there, mixing in the attacks, mixing in some wrestling. I think that he's going to be the better athlete, the more explosive fighter between the two, better cardio as well. And you've got to add in that, the leg kicks. That's something that I think will be there for Loosa, where Rowe, is looking to box. He's got these long, lanky legs. I think that Loosa is going to be able to chop away at those and then mix in takedowns and really just keep Rowe off balance here. So I think the more durable guy in Loosa, who's never been finished in his career, is going to be able to withstand some of the big shots maybe early, but then really just take over. So at this price at -130, I like Ange Loosa to get the job done. And the last one here we're going to talk about is going to be Rodolfo Bellato. He is -375 in the comeback. We've got Paul Craig +290. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into this one. This was a rebooking of a fight where Bellato wasn't able to fight. I think some funny stuff there. That's if you want to look into why. But with that said, this is another spot here where Paul Craig, is an aging out fighter. He's 37 years old, and, he's a guy that's 1-5 out of his last 6. His only win is over Andre Muniz, who is not very good at all. And this is really what kind of an aging out fighter kind of looks like, where they're just, hey, let's kind of tee you up to Bellato here, and let's see what happens if there's a brutal finish at this point. And, you got Bellato, who has a lot of flaws. There's no doubt about it. The guy's definitely, has issues of his own, but I think the matchup works out very well for him in this spot. Paul Craig is all grappling, no real striking. He has basic combinations, no real power. And that's where I think that you can see Bellato really finding opportunities to land those bigger shots. Plus, you just have never seen real improvements from Paul Craig, like almost ever. The guy is absolutely deadly on the ground, but he just has nothing else when you're talking about just elevating your skill set. I think that again, this guy's at the end of his career. I don't see any new wrinkles coming into his game at this point here. Plus, he's moving up to 205. And I think that that's another spot where probably not a good thing for him. I think that really favors the bigger guy in Bellato. And the other part here is, again, the grappling of Paul Craig is good, but he doesn't have the wrestling. He doesn't have the ability to get the fight to the ground. That's going to allow Bellato to land the bigger shots, march forward, defend the takedowns, and really just find success on the feet. I think he's going to be the cleaner striker between the two. You've got Paul Craig, who also, out of his 9 losses, 5 are by knockout. I think that plays into really where I'm going with this bet here. I do think Bellato moves forward, finds the big shot, probably knocks out Paul Craig here, and you're getting off the minus 375 number, and you can get Bellato around that minus 140, minus 150. I think, I don't think the judges are going to get involved in this one here. I do think that Bellato can find success, and I think he's going to be marching forward and throwing haymakers, and I think it catches Paul Craig. So I'm taking Rodolfo Bellato to get the job done by knockout, minus 140. So there you have it for my plays for UFC Atlanta. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Again, have 3 plays up, have a 4-unit play in there, 2 plays at plus money. Going to be adding to that. Do not forget to like this video. Appreciate the participation on that. And let's cash again. Let's cash those tickets. Let's get it done. See you next week, and let's cash.